grab your pre-workout and turn up that volume. It is time for a new episode of the Powerlifter's Den with your host, Cam Smith. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Powerlifter's Den. I'm your host, Cam Smith, and today I wanted to bring on a bench press legend. Jeremy, why don't you introduce yourself?
So I'm Jeremy Hoornstra. Don't consider myself necessarily a bench press legend. I'm okay at it.
So I know you have the, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the all-time raw bench at 242 and 275.
Yes, currently that I believe I had it at 228 for about 3 hours and it got broken. But yeah, I've got 242 and 275.
That's being able to bench press over 600 at that weight class is incredible, let alone get close to 7. So I guess to kind of start off, we can talk about what kind of got you into powerlifting and maybe a little bit about your influences along the way.
I got into powerlifting. I'd always done sports. Like I was on the swim team. I did triathlons. I did extreme mountain biking. So I mean, I always participated in stuff. I got into bodybuilding actually, just because I don't know, probably He-Man. I mean, I was every little kid like has like that big guy or like WWE guys. I mean, they all just look like they bench like a 1,000 pounds. So got into bodybuilding and in training for that, my bench was always just really, really high. So when I moved to FSU, I was about 3 or 4 weeks out of a bodybuilding show. And I think I was doing like 585 for triples or something. And there was a guy that powerlifted at that gym. And he's like, man, you need to do powerlifting because that's like 15 pounds under the world record that you just tripled. But if you Google powerlifter at the time, I mean, it's like a 400-pound guy. It looks like he's got like 12 hot dogs like running down the back of his neck. I was like, yeah, that's not really my goal. But he ended up convincing me to do one, and I kind of stopped. I did 600. I didn't realize that like the record was 603. And then when I did that, I started just getting people calling me saying like, hey, would you do the show? Would you do the show? And just everything kind of fell in place.
Yeah, so I guess when you went into your first competition, like, were you at over 600 at that time?
Yeah, I think I didn't do as well as I was wanting to, but I think I just kind of stopped at 600 because it didn't really feel great. Didn't know the slightest thing about powerlifting. It was a little meet in Adel, Georgia. Buddy Duke was actually hosting it. Didn't know who he was. Just went over with a group of 4 guys. Was a little distracted because our hotel got broken into and they stole my jeans, which had my wallet, my keys, and everything in it. So like in between lifts, I'm like canceling credit cards, and I mean it was kind of chaotic, but yeah, I think I did like 560, 580, 600, and just kind of stopped there.
So when you did that first meet, was it a bench only at the time, or did you compete full power?
No, it was full power. I've always squatted and deadlifted. It's just it seems like as I progress or as I did through like my lifting, people call me and they say, hey, would you just come and bench? So that was typically what I did. But I've always squatted and deadlifted. It's not as high proportionately. I mean, my squat and deadlift are over my bench, but it was always, I mean, the deadlift record is much higher than mine because I am obviously not built for that.
Yeah, so I guess kind of at what point did you decide that it's like, all right, I'm going to stick to bench now and kind of let full power get on the back burner?
It didn't really. It kind of just that's just how it happened. I would have been completely down, but like people just kept saying like, "Hey, do you want to come bench?" I knew that if I did that, I would be a little bit more fresh, just having not squatted 3 times before it. But like I did the Pioneer tribute, and I did full power with that. It kind of sucked because like the week before, I strained my psoas. So I think I just did like I don't remember like 650 squat, and it started getting really irritated, so I just kind of stopped. So I think that was my opener, and then deadlift. I pretty much did the same thing, but I want to say like on that the bench that was still the total or the full power world record was still 603 technically from Mike McDonald, and I think 1977.
Oh, wow.
So I at least wanted to get that. So my first attempt, I opened with 650. And as I lowered it, I'm not used to using safeties. I never use them. And I slammed into them. And so they just basically said, press. And I dead pressed it. And they're like, that was a pretty cool thing to see, but it breaks the rules.
Yeah.
So I did it again. And then I think I don't even remember what I went up to on that one, but I think I only went up like 10 pounds just because at that point I was pretty much the only lifter. And they're like, all right, you've got like 2 minutes. I'm like, God dang, like, I'm not used to that. But yeah, I mean, I hadn't been against full power. I do actually have a goal. Obviously, I want the 701 at 242, but I want to just over 777 just on all three.
Yeah, that's incredible. So you're still kind of working towards that?
Yeah, I mean, life kind of gets in the way sometimes, like as far as like family and business and all that kind of stuff. And we're starting new businesses, and we moved our gym to another location, so that was a lot. And then I tore my pec tendon, and then I was healing up, and I dislocated my shoulder and tore a tendon in the back. So bench is on its way back up, not quite where I want it yet to compete, but it's coming. Deadlift and squat, I mean, they're back up to. Um, I know my squat. I'm doing safety squat bar. I'm doing around 675 for doubles, triples, so probably 750, 770, and deadlifts like around 7. So it's getting, those are close. Just bench is kind of lagging behind for now.
Yeah, it's funny as like the world of powerlifting kind of grows and stuff. Like you can definitely see the shift and kind of focusing on more of like the longevity and staying healthy. Just because like powerlifters now
Yeah.
are competing well into their 40s, 50s, and staying healthy and putting up crazy numbers.
Yeah, I've always been real big on listen to your body. If the check engine light comes on, you check it. Um, I've never. I mean, it's inevitable. I mean, if you're a race car driver, you're going to blow a gasket every now and then. Something's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, there's been times that like I drove to Orlando for like a just a chest session. It was just like me and like two other guys drove like an hour and a half. Get there and kind of tweak something warming up. I'm like, I'm done. I'm out, and just drive right back.
Yeah, and just remind me again, how old are you right now?
Um, 43.
Yeah, so just if you think about the general public in 43, like everyone's like, oh, that's middle age, blah blah blah. But I mean, you're still putting up crazy numbers and working towards a 700-pound bench. So
Yeah,
so how's it?
I'm trying.
Yeah, how's the training been getting back into it after all the injuries and things like that?
It's been all right. I mean, most of my injuries, like I tore my pec, like it wasn't too bad. When I say that now, compared to the pec tendon, it didn't require surgery, but I mean, it happens. I mean, you get like little strains here and there, and you kind of treat it all the same. You baby it, and then you kind of like ease into it. The pec tendon was a little bit different just because it was a little longer, and it was hurting just in a different place than like I'm used to. And I could feel like they had to screw and anchor the tendon into the bone, and that was hurting. So like when it hurts like on the inside of the bone, I mean, it's just a completely different feeling than I was used to.
Yeah,
Like I tore my meniscus. I mean, it's you got stuff that happens, and you kind of deal with it and just kind of suck it up and know that pain's part of it. And I mean, it's obviously like the check engine light, but I mean, you kind of know like what's like an okay pain and a not so good pain.
for sure. So when you did hit the 675 at 275 and the 242, what meets were those at?
Ooh, I don't know. I know that I hit 675 at 275. I was with I was with Josh Bryant, so I was like 242, and we looked and we saw that Vladimir Kraskov had the record in the 275 class. It's like 669. And I was like, "Oh, you hit that." He's like, "Well, let's get you heavy." So I flew out to Texas, and it was like a 7 hour drive for us. I think we stopped at like 7 Golden Corrals, like on the way, and I just ate myself. I was so sick. I ate like we definitely got our money's worth on an all-you-can-eat steak buffet. It was like macaroni and cheese and steak, and then like an hour later, macaroni and cheese and steak. And I think I got up to like I don't even know, like 250 maybe. I can't even remember. Um, but it wasn't bad. I remember, oh man, who was it? Sean Catterley was actually like the MC or the announcer. He was Sean Zilla from Hardcore Powerlifting. I know that because that's how he always answered the phone. But and I was like, man, I got caller ID. I know. He was the MC. I don't remember the name of the show though. It might have been the Branch Warren, I think Branch Warren Invitational, something like that. Which would have made sense. He was there, and we lifted together like the day before. As far as I did 672.4 in Alabama at, I don't know. It was at University of Alabama.
Yeah. That's
There's a lot.
funny.
They all put together. It's the one that had the three judges and the down command.
So I remember when I was in Ohio at the Pro-Am a few weekends ago, and for me this was like the first meet that I didn't cut to 242 because I was always like hovering around like 245, 248, but I'm like, all right, it's time to just put on some weight. And we drove past the Golden Corral, and I'm like, oh, that's the perfect place to get me to 275.
Right. It's like $8 for 12 pounds of steak sold. All right.
Yeah. So you basically just ate enough just to get over to not make weight to hit the record.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of felt like the heavier I got, the better. But I hit that break point and I start feeling like garbage. And I was definitely a step or two past that to where I just didn't feel good. I don't think I ate anything like the rest of the night. And I think I got up the next morning and was still trying to digest it all. But yeah, it was just to get me up to that weight class because, like I said, I think I was only like 240 when I got there. So
Yeah, so I do know, like, for me personally, and like I know a lot of people, like, as you pack on some weight, obviously you get thicker, so it kind of reduces the range of motion and seems to help the bench a lot. But I guess in your situation, it was kind of a different approach to it.
yeah, there's a limit. Like I start feeling good, like going from like 240 to 250, and when I get past like 252, then I start feeling like in my hands and like my elbows and like my feet, and I just feel like I don't know. I feel like pre-diabetic almost. Like it just feels like something's happening that's not good. This is too much. Take it back.
Yeah. So I guess kind of backtracking a little bit, you said you were kind of focused on bodybuilding at the beginning of your career, and um, it seems like that a lot of bodybuilders, obviously, one of their main focuses for, I guess, compound movements is the bench press, and obviously bodybuilders focus on a lot of volume. So we can kind of segue into that, diving into the actual training itself. I want to know if you kind of focused on a lot of heavy volume versus like top end strength and such.
I did a lot of volume, especially when I was actually training for it. Now, I lifted like weightlifting in high school, which is weird. It's like a combination of powerlifting and Olympic lifting. So it was like bench and clean and jerk.
Yeah.
And the coaches were always just like the football coaches who didn't know the first damn thing about lifting. So my instruction was pick the bar up and put it over your head. So clean and jerk was never really that great. I think I won state my senior year, and I think I got like second my junior. So my bench was always like pretty decent. So when I was training for bodybuilding and stuff, like I would say I wanted to push hard, but I'm doing like sets of 5 to 8, and it's still like over like 550. But then it's also like you got people coming up next, and you're like, oh my gosh, how much can you bench? I'm like, I don't know, put another one on, and like then the ego kind of takes over a little bit. But it always pushed me pretty hard to keep going heavier. So I would do like the hard heavy singles, but keep the mix in like with the actual like the more rep range, the higher rep range. So it was like a mixture of both. And then when I transitioned to powerlifting, the good thing about bodybuilding is it kept me very balanced. Like
Yeah.
rear delts to calves to front delts. I mean, everything was pretty symmetrical to where the points were like I was just almost like never really injured that much. Luckily. So like then like when you have that foundation and you've got the build, if you just train like the power movements, it almost seems like you work the muscles enough to where they just kind of maintain and you just kind of stay healthy. So I made a lot of progress real fast, especially when I moved up to FSU. So when I did, I just kind of kept my same routine. I just made it heavier with less reps.
Yeah. So actually, that
So,
you kind of mentioned rear delts and stuff. So I guess one of my questions for you would be, what are some of the muscle groups trained that you think are kind of overlooked or kind of not really focused on, but should be in the current world of powerlifting?
man, everybody trains what they can see or what they see everybody else doing, and they see everybody doing bench squat and dead. That makes you really good at bench squat dead sometimes and for a little bit.
Yeah.
If you're not balancing your foundation, I mean, you're pushing off of your back. So if your rear delts, your traps, your lats aren't pushing, you're either not pushing with the most muscle groups that you can, but you're also not sitting on the bench with a flex type muscle to support it. So then you're going to be that guy that says, "Oh, I used to bench this much, but then I hurt my shoulder." Yeah, if you're not training both sides of every lift, then it's going to become overpowered and you're just going to get hurt.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the saying "big back, big bench" is definitely true.
Yeah, I literally just in a workout with somebody, I wrote big back equals big bench. It's
And then, as far as the actual compound movements go, did you kind of incorporate some like bow bar bench or like football bar bench too? Like, how did you kind of incorporate those things?
um so it kind of depended on my availability with the equipment. I always trained, I don't want to say like commercial gyms because my town didn't have one. It was a local gym, but they didn't really have a lot of powerlifting stuff. So I grew up used to like the plates were like 47 pounds or 42 pounds. So like you kind of stack them up. Like I remember like benching and like having my arms set and then moving my hands over, and that was completely balanced just because there was like 12 extra pounds on one side than the other. And you touch the bar and the rack moves back and forth. So I lifted on crap. So when I got the powerlifting and everything standard, it felt amazing. Um, but specialty stuff, no, it was just like the basics, like bent over rows, like hard, heavy bent over rows, shrugs, close grip pull downs, like everything for like your lats and everything that you normally do, like and can do like with the barbell. Um, Not a whole lot of machines that I really have, but definitely didn't really have anything for powerlifting. We did have some stuff that we owned ourselves. Me and my workout partner and my roommate at the time, he was a pro strongman, so we kind of trained with that, like back and forth. Because I always felt like strength will never be a weakness. So if I'm stronger at everything, I just didn't want to be like a powerlifter that was good at bench squat dead, but if somebody had like that needed help moving a couch, then it was like too heavy for me. So I got into like all that just to kind of stay balanced and doing both. I felt like I made way more progress than anything.
Yeah, and then I mean, obviously for like accessory work and stuff, like hammering the triceps is huge. But maybe what are some of your staples that you kind of continually rotated?
For bench, I definitely did close grip bench. And then we towards the I don't want to say the end, like the last half of my training, I incorporated bands. Really like close grip band press. Single arm overhead tricep extensions is pretty good, but like you can only do it like 2 or 3 weeks before it's just too much and you start getting tendonitis. Um, I used to do really heavy like nose breakers or skull crushers with a barbell. I think like up to like 315.
Jesus.
I just tried to like just kind of change it around and just kind of mix it up to where just something was new every single week. I had set a few goals because I made a training DVD like back when I was in college, and I actually looked up Bill Kazmaier stuff, and I've talked to him a few times about it since. But I looked at everything that he did, and I was like, I want to try to beat that. So I saw like that he did like seated dumbbell military press like with the 150s for like 30, so I did like 40, like stupid stuff like that. Now he curled like I think he strict bar curled like 315. Yeah, that's all him
Yeah.
because that's just ridiculous. um but yeah, I just tried to just switch it up. Like I would do like my heavy set and then just drop down to like 4 or 5 and see if I can get 20, just like crazy volume right after a heavy lift, like no rest. And then maybe like drop down to 315 and just see if I can get like 30. I don't know. So just constantly switching it up, constantly changing it, constantly going heavy, and then just when you need the rest, listen to your body, take the rest, and then just go even harder next.
Yeah, and I definitely think the volume in the bench is huge, especially for the way
Yeah,
your pecs and shoulders and such respond.
yeah, yep, definitely. I mean, it's not just like your pec and like your front delt. I mean, there's so many muscle groups that actually activate. I mean, if your forearms aren't up to speed, like with your the inside of your tricep or the outside or your lats, your rear delts or anything, just something is going to be off, and it just takes one muscle to make you feel like crap.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess if we could kind of walk through like your bench setup, kind of maybe some things that you learned along the way, some tweaks or some things that kind of made your bench really what it was or is.
Um, yeah, so I'm known kind of as a close grip bencher, and the main reason is I've got shorter forearms, like compared to like the rest of my arm. Like I don't know if you can see, but like got my forearm, and like my hand is like the size of like my whole forearm. Um, But I was taught thumb on that interneural line, and that's where. And I think, in ninth grade, I was benching 135 for a couple doubles or something. That's where the seniors in the school taught me how to bench. Luckily, that's the place that when I go down and I touch the bar, I'm at 90 degrees. So with my elbow, so it's the perfect spot for me to when you touch, everything fires at the same time. So I get a ton of speed. Um, some things that I've added into it, dead presses, I think, are just that Josh Bryant got me on those. There's nothing better than getting speed off your chest than a dead press. Um, just eliminating all that tension that like builds up on the negative. Other than that, just overall tightness, squeezing the bar to try to leave like little finger grooves in it, like just squeeze everything and just kind of like ripple down forearm, bicep, tricep, shoulders, and just keep everything tight. And as you come down, get even tighter. And then when you push, get even tighter.
It's something that I've kind of recently changed in my bench press that's been huge is really focusing on keeping the forearm stacked because obviously the more stacked you are, the more power you can get through them.
Yeah. Forearms are huge. I mean, that's why Spoto did so good at it. I mean, he's got these giant freaking head sized forearms from arm wrestling. But I mean, it didn't with that. I mean, it didn't take him very long to get to 715.
Yeah, yeah, like exactly. And I think with the grip too, like obviously everyone has different builds and such. So I think that being kind of one of the main, I guess, keys to figure out where your grip should be. That's kind of what I like to use, and kind of if I'm coaching someone, that's kind of my coaching point.
Yeah. And I mean, somebody's going to have like, I get people that are like, well, I'm benching, like when I bench really wide, I tend to do a little bit better. I'm like, well, that's because like you've worked those muscles. But if you can go in a little bit and get more muscles actually activating and everything firing at the same time, 5 muscle groups all pushing versus 3, you're going to end up doing more. So finding that little sweet spot, like that's in the middle of like just chest and delts on the outside and just triceps and rear delts on the inside, finding wherever you can use the most is going to be like the key.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess maybe not just now, but throughout your career, kind of how many days a week were you benching?
Kind of changed. I think I had a 5 day split originally, and that was like bodybuilding split. It was basically something like a leg day, and then like a chest day, and then like a back day, and then like a shoulder day, and then like accessory like forearms, traps, calves, all that kind of stuff. Switched it when I started training with Josh to a 4 day split, and it was basically heavy chest with volume, a leg day, and then it was like a shoulder, tricep, speed chest day, and then that was much lighter. It would be like instead of say like a heavy day go up like in the mid sixes, like the light day might be like 495 for like 8 sets of 3, like all in the minute or something. Um, and then like with triceps, and then the last day would be back, just to kind of make sure that like lats and everything are functioning. Pretty big emphasis on deads. As I started getting closer to the competitions, obviously like the squats and deadlifts would taper off just because it would be pointless to strain something going on a heavy squat when I'm benching only in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So
So I guess like during prep, you would still kind of train. All obviously all the muscle groups are important in bench, but you kind of still um, obviously be training your squat and deadlift, but you'd just be kind of keeping the volume and intensity high with the bench and tapering off the squat and deadlift.
yeah, it was almost like a couple accessory lifts would end up taking over. Like bent over rows usually end up taking over for the back day. I mean, I would do deads maybe like up to like I don't know, like 495, nothing crazy, something that I hit like an easy set of 5 or something, and then it was like bent over rows with 495 for like 5 sets of 5. So it was like heavy volume on that, just because there's a little bit more carryover with that, and it seems like it's got to work because whenever I stopped doing bent over rows, my bench always went down. So I mean, that was enough to tell me like, okay, like you got to keep these in. Um, but yeah, legs, same thing. I don't think there was a whole lot that really just, I don't want to say like it became a deload, but I usually went to like safety squat bar and ended up just kind of like doing reps and lunges and step ups and all that kind of crap. But nothing to the point to where like I was like pushing myself on the verge of injury.
So when would you take your last heavy bench before a comp?
Usually 2 weeks out, I would hit like the opener, and then but like for about the last 3 weeks into like 5 weeks really, I would do like overloads, like isostatic presses, superset, like with a heavy single, um, static holds, and like right after that, um, heavy singles, pushing like to failure. And then as I got closer, take like 2 weeks out, hit like an easy opener, and then the last week pretty much just dick around like deload 315 for 3 sets of 3, stuff like that.
So I guess talking about the static holds, I know some people incorporate that, some people are against it. How did you incorporate that into your training?
I did it because in my mind, if it feels crazy light, it's going to be crazy light in my hands. Um, and it's going to be crazy fast. So if I unrack 700 and it feels like it's 225, I'm probably going to push it up. If I like unrack it and I hadn't held anything close to like 650, it's going to feel crazy heavy. And like on the way down, I'm going to be like, oh, damn it. Like, I mean, so, and that's so much of the lift. Like, if I've unracked a weight and it just feels, I don't even feel it in my hands, like I can pretty much guarantee I'm going to get it.
Yeah. So how would you incorporate them? Like, would you do them for like before your heavy sets, or would you do it separately, or like just how did you?
I did both, kind of. So we were doing them like I would do like the heavy bench, and then right after that, do the heavy statics. Um, then I started incorporating like warm up and hit like my maybe like my first set of heavy bench, and then I started doing isostatic presses, and just like basically set it to where I'm like 4 inches away from lockout, and just have like put like my actual working set. So it was like 650 on the bar, and have like people hanging on the bar. So there's just no chance I'm gonna get it up, and just push as hard as I can, trying to just get it up and like make a bet. Like if I get this up and y'all are laying on it, then y'all owe me like $100 or something. So I'm sitting there pushing as hard as I can for like 5 straight seconds with somebody counting. Because if I'm counting myself, it's 23 for 5 because that's hard. You can like feel on that, like your soul leaves your body for about 5 seconds and just watches the set. But just push as hard as you can, and then when you're done with that, it almost seems like everything after that's just. I mean, you're tired, but it just feels way lighter. So I kind of went back and forth between the static hold and the static press. But if I did the static press, it was always like right before maybe like my actual heavy working sets, and the static holds were just right after.
Yeah. So with the static press and the hold stuff, what was the? Did you ever have any like difficulties with your CNS recovering from that?
Not really, because at that point, like I'm pretty on schedule and on par for like deloads and making sure that like everything's like in check. And at that point, the volume of the workouts is like tapered down to like 50% what it normally is, because I'm normally pretty high in the volume. And at that point, like if I'm like cutting out like everything to where I'm like bench, static hold, and then like maybe some like floor presses with the dumbbells and like flies, like that workout, the warm up take longer than the actual working sets. So didn't really feel like it was a whole lot. So I recovered pretty quickly from it. But I think the conditioning and the higher volume through the actual training cycle played a lot into that, just because, I mean, if you're used to running 10 miles a day and you run a half mile, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, true. It's kind of like the same thing too, especially if you're going into a full power meet. Like if you're conditioned to high volume and then you go and you're only doing 9 lifts that day, it's not gonna take a lot out
Right.
of you.
Right. Yeah. Granted, it is hard and heavy. I get it. But yeah, but you're lifting for a total of like 4 minutes. So
Yeah. So I guess another thing I wanted to ask you, and I'm sure people have asked you this before, is have you ever thought about getting into a shirt? Have you ever messed around with a shirt or anything like that?
So, yeah, that's been asked a lot. Ken Anderson sent me a bunch of shirts just in case I ever decided to. I think so did. I think John Enzer sent me a couple. Um, but no, I didn't know. And what's funny is that very first competition that I told you I didn't know anything about it. There was a guy named, they called him Gunny Green, and he had a bench shirt on, and we're like, "What is this that you're like? What is it?" And he's like, "Oh, it's a shirt that just basically makes you add like 50 pounds to your bench." I was like, "What?" And we didn't know it was, and there was like no category differentiating the two.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Well, can I borrow it?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, of course." I just thought it was like a normal thing. Well, luckily he ended up tearing it, because I probably would have ended up dropping the bar on my stomach. Um, but we tried. I think I got a shirt, and it took like 15 minutes to get it on. We got like the groove briefs and the suit, and like I ended up not even being able to get them on. and it just seemed like it was like so much work. And I lifted and I tried to get like 700 to touch. I couldn't even get it to touch. So we put 750 on, and I got to like a one board and just threw it up, and then did a bunch of reps and stuff. And I got done, and I didn't even feel like I worked out. And it felt like my raw bench went down, and I was like, man, this just, I don't know. It's a whole other sport. It's the same thing, but it's so different. It's high jump and pole vault.
Yep, I say the same
You
exact
have
thing.
yeah, you have to train completely different for them. It's a different ball game. So no, I never really wanted to, because it just felt like by the time I got the shirt on, I would already be done with like my workout. And then I didn't have a group of 8 guys that like you almost need, like when you start going heavy, to do the 1, 2, 3 out release, down, 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 down. I mean, I didn't have that. It was like me and one other guy if I was lucky.
Yeah.
I just didn't have that benefit. And then we also had like the big fat old 1980 45s that you can only fit like 6 of them on a side. So I don't know. It just wasn't for me. It didn't fall into the mix.
Yeah, it is always interesting to kind of hear someone with like a very high raw bench to just see what their experience was like with that. Like for me, I mean, my bench is literally half of what yours is. So, but I'm gonna do a multiply meet, and I'm just ready to learn. And it is funny because all these people like trash on equipped lifting, and then you have some of these people putting on these shirts, and they're like, "All right, do more of that," and you're like, "Dude, it's just so different."
Yeah, it's not even the same. I mean, yes, they're both bench press, but sprinting and marathon running is the same sport, but there's so much difference in it that it's not.
Yeah, for
So,
sure. So I know you said you were working towards your 700 pound bench, and so I guess maybe for a short term, what are some of the goals you have set for this year?
what are the what?
Some short term goals you have.
Short-term goals. Get back to where I was. That's the basic one for right now for bench. Um, yeah, I'm just basically like just tracking like weekly progress on what I'm doing on dead press, what I'm doing on like, not really doing static press, but like what I'm doing on like doubles, triples on bench and stuff, and then like put on the band and like close grip band press, and I'll do close grip band press with a 2 board and just try to like get those progressively going up. And just stay consistent on it. But just yeah, something always happens. It seems
Yeah.
like right now, like I have to take this week off because I got something in my forearm that's just being stupid. So this week is like 225. I think I did like 8 sets of like I don't even remember. I just kind of did it until I stopped. Like 40. It was like 8 sets of 40 or something to where like with like a minute rest. Um, just because, and I could still feel it even with that. But I did a lot of forearm work and it's getting better. But it's just stupid check engine lights sometimes.
Yeah. And I guess kind of outside of powerlifting, maybe what does your balance look like for like your daily life, and kind of what do you do outside of powerlifting?
So uh, we have 8 horses at our house. My wife trains, breaks horses, gets them to where they run barrel patterns and load on trailers. And my son does rodeo and he's a farrier and he shoes them. And then my daughter does barrels and does rodeos and stuff. I don't do anything with horses because they're way stronger than me and I've seen what they can do. Um, so I drive them from one place to another, and that's about the extent of my involvement in that. Um, and then so we've got that, but like it seems like there's always something to do with that. There's I need to get the tractor, I need to load some hay in the horse pen, or I need to cut this tree up that fell because they were chewing on it, so I need to cut it up and we need to haul it off. And between that and then I usually get to the gym like 12, 1 o'clock because I own it. We own the gym, and it's 24-hour access, luckily, so I don't have to be here all the time. But there's something going on here, something broke or somebody did something and the cable snapped on this machine, so I got to replace it. But somebody was afraid they were going to get in trouble, so they threw the part in the corner, so I got to find it. And it's a bunch of 8-year-olds working out sometimes. But um, there's uh there's that. And then I mean, as of now, those are like the 2 big things. I write a lot of workouts for people. I do online programming. So those 3 things are pretty much what consumes all the time. And I kind of like associate like the horses and stuff with family, because I mean, if we're together as a family, it's probably going to involve horses at the time. But um, yeah, we're usually doing one of those three things at the gym, right? Workouts or running around with the horses.
Yeah, that's funny because my little sister is just getting into horse right now. She's 8, so that's kind of like her life right now. So what's for you? Has it been kind of a difficult balance to balance that with the gym, things like that?
Um, yeah. So horses are cool. They're like dogs, except they cost $1,000 a month in food. They, my opinion is they're very poorly designed because they just are built for self destruction. They'll just like they'll eat bad food and then they'll just roll over and die. Their intestines, they can't throw up, so their intestines just like explode. So you have to like go in or up to get. I mean, it's like the weirdest. Oh, they need to go to the vet. That's cool. That's $1,000. If the vet comes to your house because he's too sick, that's $2,000. So he hurt his foot, so now he's lame and he can't walk. So now he needs special shoes. And there's so much going on with the horses that is um, so the balance with that it's a lot to get used to at first, um, but it's cool when like everything is like actually like in check, almost like in powerlifting when you're like balanced and healthy and like making progress. When all the horses are good and they're like riding it and the kids are like making progress, because my wife and son do team roping together, so like she heads and he heels, and they're doing that and competing in rodeos and stuff, and it's really cool to watch. um, but like it's the behind the scenes stuff, like she's training this one horse right now that it just basically to get it in the trailer. That's like the whole goal. But if you think of like if you found like a scared dog that's like on the side of the road, like in an alley, and he's like scared to be touched, and work with him to the point where he just runs and jumps in your car. That's about the same thing. But you can't do anything with a horse if you can't take him somewhere. So you kind of have to teach him to load in the trailer. But it's just that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of people like, oh, I'm a powerlifter, like this is my life, but like at the end of the day, it's just a hobby, and everyone has a day job to work. So
Yep, it would be very cool if I was set up to where I could just powerlift. But I mean, I don't know any powerlifter. Well, maybe Edcom. I don't know that just don't have another job.
yeah,
Um, but he made a career out of it. He became, so I mean, obviously the best ever. So everybody just wants to see him and like pay him just to come meet him and talk to him. That would have been cool, but not quite there. So yeah, everybody that I know has jobs and they have lives. Shoot, I think like Brian Siders is like a psychiatrist. I mean, you got that, yeah. So whatever,
yeah.
it's just a hobby.
Yeah. So another thing I wanted to kind of ask you too was maybe over the years some of the bigger lessons that you've learned, or some words of advice that was that really stuck with you.
Um, Lessons I've learned were know what you're doing, because there's like two or three different instances that I didn't know what I was doing and I pushed hard and it made huge altering results. I didn't know about dieting and I dehydrated down to make sure that I was underweight and just dropped a bunch of weight. Didn't know that it was unhealthy to lift 2 hours later and ended up like popping my bicep tendon. And that was at the Olympia. So that set me back pretty much. And that was like my first real injury too. So make sure that you know what you're doing. If you have somebody that you can trust that's actually there for you to lift with, you're going to do better no matter what. You can always get stronger by yourself, but having somebody there to push you harder is like usually what it takes. Um, I don't know, just listen to your body. You're going to get hurt, but try not to.
Yeah. That, like I said before, that's a huge shift in the world now of powerlifting. It's kind of, I mean, you were in a time where it was just like eat as much as you can, lift as much as you can, and now you can kind of see some
Yeah.
of the results of the people that train that way.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who have not made it very far in life just because they kind of made powerlifting in their life, um, which sucks. And I mean, if that's what they want, cool. But I mean, I know that they had families as well that are probably pretty messed up about it. But um, I'll say one thing that I'm pretty adamant on is technique, don't get me wrong, technique is important. Make sure your technique is good. But powerlifting is about strength. And that's always going to be my number one go-to. If you want a bigger bench, get stronger. Like, stop trying to figure out how to sit on the bench different and just get stronger.
Yeah, that's definitely another part of powerlifting, especially obviously in the raw scene. But so many
Yeah.
people are worrying way too much about their technique when if it's
Mm-hmm.
if even just say if it's 80% perfect, like you need to just focus on training heavy sometimes.
Yeah. Get stronger. Strength is never a weakness. If you have got crap form and bench 700 pounds and I've got way better form at bench 5, you beat me.
Yeah.
So who cares?
So speaking of 700, is that something that you kind of have a estimated timeline of when you actually think you could achieve that, or is it kind of just something you're just
Um,
chugging along?
Honestly, where I'm at right now, the goal is like hopefully this year high sixes. I'm like low sixes now, like 615, 20 maybe. Want I'm thinking that like if I progress just with everything we have going on and stuff, based on the last like progression of like the last 6 months, I'm shooting for like October, November to be back up around like 660 to 675 range. And then probably the beginning of next year, try to go for like over seven.
That'd be awesome. And outside of actually competing and stuff, I know you said you do some programming, some coaching, kind of. What else is your involvement in the world of powerlifting?
I have a powerlifting gym. That's that's about it. I've done a lot of seminars and I've traveled a lot, like the competitions, and done like guest lists and appearances and stuff. But as of now, I do a lot of coaching and I own a powerlifting gym. It's a powerlifting. We have everything for powerlifting, but I mean we've got other stuff. That's about it as far as that. I don't really keep up with like who's the best of this and who's the best of that. I've got a lot of people that I know in powerlifting and that I've met over the years, but I don't. I mean, I have a job and a family and bills and horses,
Yep.
and that's, that's a little bit more on my priority list right now.
Yeah. So, what's the name of your gym and where's it located?
It's Seminole Strength and Conditioning. We are in Tallahassee, about 2 miles away from FSU.
Okay. And I obviously Florida's huge, and I'm from North Massachusetts, so I don't really know Florida that well. But how far are you from Daytona?
So originally, I'm from Central Florida, right outside Orlando.
Yep.
And where I was at, it was an hour and a half to Daytona or an hour and a half to Tampa. So like pretty much like right smack in the middle of the state, hour and a half each way. Tallahassee is like way up in the top corner. Um, so I'd have to take I-10 to I-95, maybe 5 hours,
Yeah.
something like that. I'm closer to like St. Augustine and Jacksonville Beach, but
Yeah, because I'm going down to Daytona for the meet at Perfect Storm, so I was
okay.
yeah.
Yeah. That's where Dan works out.
Yep. Yeah, something
Yeah.
I've kind of learned recently is the powerlifting scene in Florida is actually pretty big.
Yeah, it's cool. Dan's a great guy. Actually went to his wedding, and if this doesn't say anything about him, I went to his wedding. There was like maybe a 2 hour break between the wedding and like the reception, and the bearings went out of my in my Yukon that I was driving at the time, and so I call him. I'm like, hey man, I'm broken down. I've got Shelly's, my wife's dad is bringing me a hub kit. And he's like, dude, I'll come help you. I was like, you've lost your mind. This is your wedding day. He's like, man, just tell me where you're at and I'll come help you. I was like, I will absolutely not tell you where I'm at. Go enjoy your reception. Thank you. And like, was just going to leave his wedding to come help me like on the side of the road, change out my hub. So, I mean, awesome dude, strongest in the world right now. Um, yeah, there's a lot of guys in Florida, and it was really convenient because being in Central Florida, like it was only like a 2 hour drive for like anywhere up north, anywhere down south, like within reason. So we used to have like 6 or 7 of us that were like four pro strongmen, like three benching over 600, and we'd all just like meet up like on weekends and just like train like in my yard and just do stones, log, just whatever we wanted to.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean Dan's obviously a monster lifter, and there's
Mm.
a lot of 600-pound bench press down south, I guess.
There, so the funny, yes, there is, and there's also a lot that just don't compete just because they don't care to. One of the things that probably helped me the most is I mean, they say like if you want to run fast, always you train with somebody that's faster than you. And the same with lifting, lift with somebody stronger. So when I was like 18, 19, I benched 405 like the end of, I want to say like the middle of my senior year. So like by the end of like, I want to say like when I was about 20, I was hitting like around 515. And there was a guy named Algernon, and he was like the strongest dude in the city, and he benched 600. So I started training with him, and he'd be like, "Let's go like 520 for like a double." I'm like, "Let's go!" And I just tried to keep up with him, and he never competed, never cared. He looked like what's it, Green Mile? Like he's just like this
Yeah.
jack tall dude, had like these gold earrings that sat straight up because his neck was like out past his ears. Just a strong dude. And I just tried to keep up with him, and he benching over 600. So, and he's just in Leesburg, Florida.
It's always kind of crazy to think about just how many like insanely strong people there are out there that just have never competed, and we'll never know.
Yeah, yep, they're everywhere.
So I think we can kind of wrap things up here. So I'll ask my question to you: if you could give a new powerlifter or someone going into their first meet a word of advice, what would that be?
Have fun. Don't worry about what you get. It's your first meet. Get your baseline, and then get stronger from there.
Hell yeah.
Everyone's like, "Well, should I cut? I'm like 3 pounds over." No, I don't do it. Go in there and have fun. Because if you go in and you start stressing out about like, man, I'm like 5 pounds under this guy, yeah, the competition's cool and stuff, but like the first memory, the first thing that you're going to stick with is like a very stressful meet, and it's not going to get any better from there. So just have fun with it.
For sure. And if you do things right, your first meet's going to be your worst meet.
Yep. You're going to set a goal. Everybody's like, well, I just want to hit this. I don't know anybody that's like, man, I hit every single one of my goals today. Like that just never, that's not going to happen. Like chances are it's slim. It'll happen, but it's slim. And usually, if you did, you just set them a little too low. Like you like kind of. I want to have a goal of something I just tripled. I mean, I want something that like it's 40 pounds over what I've ever done. Um, so I very rarely have I like. I'd say that I hit my third lift a lot because I took my first lift as my last warm up basically because I usually got a fourth. But a lot of my clients, man, I'm pushing them, and if they get their third lift, like they grinded that crap out to where blood shot out of somewhere,
Yeah.
and they got nothing left.
Well, I wanted to thank you
So
for taking the time to come on. It was a pleasure having you on.
I appreciate it, man.